New rule changes for first-time homebuyers in Canada. Some may say they're good. I don't really think so, and I'm going to show you why. So essentially what's happened is the federal government has allowed the insurers to offer a 30-year amortization to first-time homebuyers. There's a secondary change, which we'll talk about a little later, which is a first-time homebuyer can also withdraw up to $60,000 out of their RSPs. But I want to dive into why this change sounds great, but isn't really, at least in my opinion, as a mortgage broker. So I crunched some numbers really quickly. And if a first-time homebuyer makes $100,000 a year and they're getting a 5% interest rate on their mortgage, they will qualify for approximately $464,000 as their purchase prices before strata fees or property taxes, which will lower it a little bit, but it's their baseline. With the 30-year amortization, the new rule, they would increase for an extra $29,000, which, it's a pretty small increase. We're being real, it's 6.2%. I did the math. But while I don't want to complain about that increase because they do qualify for more money, the question is at what cost? If the 30-year mortgage, so if we compare the 25-year versus the 30-year mortgages, and we assume that interest rates stay at 5%, which some of you may say, Keaton, that's ridiculous. Rates are going to go down. But if we look at the average from interest rates from the 90s to, let's say, 2020, 2021, it's in the fives. So I think it's reasonable to assume that's going to be the case long-term moving forward as well. That 30-year mortgage qualifying for the extra $29,000 in your purchase price is going to cost that borrower $109,000 in more interest. So I don't know. I don't personally think that $109,000 of interest to qualify for $29,000 more is ideal. Then we get into the fact that it's only on new build properties, which means you have to pay GST. Good for the government. Now, there are some partial rebates that come back for first-time homebuyers on GST, but it doesn't get it all back to you. So overall, I got to lean towards this 30-year amortization thing. Sounds great, but when we really crunch the numbers, it's not going to make a huge difference. I also have to wonder, and I'm actually curious your opinion, if all first-time home buyers get, let's say on new build properties, a 6.2% increase in purchasing power, is that ultimately just going to lead to them competing with each other in a market where there's a lot of scarcity due to housing shortages, not enough houses? We actually have the lowest housing in the G7 per capita. So, but is that extra qualifying power just going to result in more competition, which pushes the cost of these new builds up? If the cost of these new builds go up, then it's going to impact everybody. Yes, first-time homebuyers may be a little bit more competitive, and maybe it will level out the playing field. But if the price goes up, it kind of nullifies the change. So it'll be an interesting one to see. There is one silver lining, though, potentially, if we really want to min-max things. So I did a quick calculation, and I'm going to share with you guys. Let's see, is this going to change? There we go. So I ran a scenario where if someone were to stay at their current limit, so they purchase at the same maximum purchase price as if before, which is a $464,000 purchase price. So they don't qualify for more money. Instead, they take the 30-year amortization to have lower payments. That would mean their payments are about $206 a month lower. Now that $206 a month, if they were to put that in their tax-free savings account at 7.5% interest, the extra interest cost over 25 years is about $82,000. In exchange, they would create a $173,000 investment account. So, potentially this could be useful because if they were to have those lower payments and then diligently put the money into a tax-free savings account, they could end up with this extra, let's say $173,000. We take out the $82,000 extra interest, they're roughly $90,000 ahead. I would argue that the other benefit to that is that they have lower payments and they're putting this money in an account. So if they did hit a hard period of time, a challenging period, they have an extra contingency to make them a little bit safer. So overall, I'd say the rule changes are kind of political, probably. I don't think they're going to have a major impact for first-time homebuyers. Certainly a few ways, like taking the lower payments and investing the difference, you could get out ahead. But overall, I don't think it's really a game changer. Now, the RSP side, I'll address that really quick. My simple question is, how many first-time homebuyers can come up with $60,000 in savings? It may be useful for some, but then there's also the first-time homebuyer savings account, which they would theoretically need or want to max. So really, this is only going to apply to first-time home buyers with a lot of money. Now, if mom and dad are gifting a bunch of money, sure, that may make them a little more efficient. But at the end of the day, like my goal personally would be to see more people put in a position to purchase a home, not the people that are already strong enough to buy a home just get a couple extra advantages. I personally think that all roads lead to they need to build more affordable housing. And by affordable housing, I don't mean little shitty boxes, but rather, they just need more housing, more things that Canadians want to live in. Hopefully, bring housing prices down a little bit or stabilize them at the very least. I personally hope that while I work with a lot of real estate investors, I hope we see a relatively flat real estate market. I hope the next 15 years for real estate are not as lucrative for real estate investors as the last 15 years. We need more housing prices, or we need more housing, and we need to hopefully figure out ways to stifle housing prices going up. I don't think that needs to be done through regulations and control, but rather we need more housing. Lowest housing in the G7 out of all countries, or can't speak today, doing this off the cuff. If we have the lowest number of housing units per capita in the G7 and one of the largest countries in the world, I personally think that means there's a problem and they need to figure that out. And instead of putting rules in everybody's way, I think they need to figure out how to build more houses. But hey, I'm a mortgage broker. I'm certainly biased. What do you think? Am I right? Am I wrong? What can we do to fix this? Let me know. Leave a comment, leave a like, give a subscribe. And at the end of the day, I'll do my best to break down these changes so that you can objectively figure out what's right for you. Till next time, everybody.